Yeah. From the first word spoken to the last amen. Look, day one, I believe in the Father, maker of the heavens and the holler. Seen things unseen in the silence, whole world in his hands, that's balance. Light, land, oceans in order, skylines stretch past borders. Every breath, every law that's written came from the mind that isn't limited by minutes or distant. Feminine wisdom, perfect existence, one throne, no rubble in the system. Alpha in the code, I listen. We believe, say it out loud. One God, one Son, one Spirit in the crowd. From the throne to the grave, then he rose in three. Whole church stand up, this is our creed. We believe, heart on sleeve. Every line in my soul like ink that bleed. From the first I believe to the last, amen. That's the truth we stand on. Say it again. Only one sin, true God, true flesh, that's intent. Born from a woman, promise in the womb, royal in the manger, glory in the gloom. Walked dust, felt hunger in the heat, love wore sandals in the street. Spoke life, storm, heard wind, froze, touch of his hand, blind eyes rose. For I say, took the blame, that's sentence. Cross on his back, that's penance. Laid in the grave, don't shut dark deep. Third day, sun up, death fell asleep. Lifted up, backseated with the Father. All things under him, why bother? Running from grace when the gate wide, he'll come blazing. Judge day, no size. We believe, hey. Say it out loud. One God, one Son, one Spirit in the crowd. From the throne to the grave, then he rose in three. Whole church stand up, this is our creed. We believe, heart on sleeve. Every line in my soul, I ain't that bleed. From the first I believe to the last, amen. That's the truth we stand on. Say it again. I believe in the Spirit, breathe in the lungs. Fire in the room when the praise gets sung. Oh yeah. Prophets write songs, holy, holy sets us apart. One church, one hope, one birth. Forgiveness reigning on this earth. Grace gonna crack when he calls our names. New life, new body, no shame. We believe. Say it out loud. One God, one Son, one Spirit in the crowd. From the throne to the grave, then he rose in three. Whole church stand up, this is our creed. We believe, heart on sleeve. Every line in my soul like ink that bleeds. From the first I believe to the last, amen. That's the truth we stand on. Say it again.
Welcome to the Call to Defend live stream, one of the last bastions against Islam in the West. I am Caleb Elliott, and this is Josh Davis. Josh, how are you? You are muted.
That's new. It's never done that to me before.
It's done to me sometimes.
Good. If you see me looking to the side a lot, it's because I'm running all my share screens from my other laptop, because that's what I researched on it, and I had no desire in trying to look for them all over again or to send myself links to everything. Not that we need to go through everything, and not that there's a ton. It's just with everything I had going on today, I had no desire in doing any of that. So if I'm looking off to the side, I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm just getting the next thing up.
No, he's actually hallucinating.
But we are,
we got
chaos.
Yeah, it's been a second. Josh was like, leave me alone. I'm trying to read here.
Oh, I think I had a setting I had set last time. Here we go. There it is.
Yeah, I didn't know if we wanted to do that just in case we get some weird or risky comments, but
no, it's not like YouTube could take us down for that.
No, but we do generally try to filter. Like when we had the Mormons actively using curse words in our comment section.
Yes, but I can also turn off and delete.
That's fair.
If we ever got
Oh,
big enough to where we had a moderator too, they could just watch the comment section and watch things that are sketchy. But excuse me, we are live on both YouTube channels today, and we are currently live on Instagram, but Instagram runs super behind, so they're still in the middle of the intro song. Oh, never mind, now they're up. When I last checked, they were in the middle of the intro song. I guess they just kind of caught up. And then Facebook changed its policy to where you now need to have a certain number of followers in order to go live, which is dumb. And TikTok changed their policy to where you need to have a certain number so you can get the stream key to add to StreamYard to go live. But I could go live on my phone if I wanted to, or if you are in the same room, we could do that. But everyone keeps changing their policies, and it's a little dumb. But we're at least live on 3 platforms today. Twitch, I think we'll probably try to get that one back up eventually. That one had a delay. When we got that warning from the Islam call-in show, Twitch was delayed, and so it's still on probation technically, and it cannot go live for another couple weeks.
Gotcha. I kind of wondered what had happened to the Twitch, but I kept forgetting to ask, and here we are. All right,
yeah,
cool.
I think it should be good by the end of the month. But I only could do 3 platforms at once, so either we will do 3 completely different platforms, or it will be 2 YouTube platforms and 1 non-YouTube platform. So we'll see. We're gonna see how this week runs, or this rest of this month runs, and go from there.
Cool.
So, quick few things. We have Discord. If you're on Instagram, that should be in our bio of our page. And for you, those who are on YouTube, we have a comment down below. A section down below that you can go click and join the Discord there. You are not. There's no prerequisite regarding if you are Muslim, since we're doing that today, or if you're a Jehovah's Witness, or if you're Christian, if you're male, female, if you're into philosophy, if you're not into philosophy, if you're a layman, if you're an academic, whatever it is, you're welcome to show up. However, if you're an academic,
anyone and everyone,
I will be scared if you're an academic, because then I was like, why are you here? Why are you in my Discord? Why don't you run this now? You can take over.
We have Islam is a false Arab religion, and the Roman Catholic Church is a false religion. I'll agree with half of that.
That was a shot. That was a shot. All right.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. So go join that. We have that. It's been pretty active. It's also an easier way to get a hold of us and to set up some stuff that you'd like to see us do in the future. By the way, for anyone that might perchance have emailed us in the past, I am getting to those this weekend. Finally. We'll be addressing those in between all the editing I have to do for the next few weeks. So, but yes. But the fun thing too is that Caleb and I are going to be also doing some couple extra streams. Gonna be some longer ones. So let us know what kind of things you want us to talk about there. We might do some Q&R or whatever. It will be the last weekend of July going to August. We will be on the road.
Let's do the 10-hour stream, baby.
Pull a David Wood, and then we'll probably do something from the room too. I'll be recording something, I think, hopefully while we're there, or a couple things. Haven't decided what. I'm kind of trying to figure out if I want to do stuff based on what we're doing there, or I want to have some stuff I just saved to do there because different scenery. But anyways, today we are looking at comment. What, a 10-hour stream? Yeah, probably. Depends on how long the car drive. I mean, it's not even that long of a drive.
No, it's a 6-hour drive. I figure we'll probably stop for food.
Are we gonna stream while we're eating?
Yeah, do like a mukbang.
Okay.
It's like in Celebration of Ram It Down. We were eating then.
It's different.
We're going to a Muslim conference.
Yes, but we're going into if we're going into anywhere, then that could pose some problems stream wise. with eating. We barely got away with it at Five Guys that one time.
Well, it's just because it was loud in there.
I know, but it's not going to be any quieter elsewhere.
That's true.
Anyways, so that will be coming up. We also have some good debates going on in our thing, on our Discord. And I'm excited because I actually got a recommendation as a very different kind of recommendation that we're going to get to do next month.
Oh.
You already know about it. And yeah, it's the book.
Oh.
Jonah Bucks is one of the guys who's in there. He recommended this book to us. He's also commented on our YouTube page before about this book by Alan Getworth, I think it is, which is interesting because it, in one hand, sides with us and also does not side with us. And so it's an interesting time. So you can go out from different angles. But I'll save that for next month because that's really one of the key big things that is probably one of the biggest polemics towards atheism is regarding how morality works. But anyways, today is Islam, and this ties into morality. Caleb sent me a list of things he wanted to try and talk about regarding Islam for the month, of which he said if we have to change it, we will. But at least the one he sent me for today was more specifically looking at the issue of Islam in the Middle East. Because Caleb, you said you heard a few different things in the past regarding the West and the East. I went a slightly different angle, and it just went more for general. I have one Eastern thing regarding Lebanon, but a lot of the other stuff I have was more so regarding societies in general, and looking at Islamic societies and some of the things that some scholars have said. So I have a few brief articles if we want to as well. I do also have on the side IP's debate with Junior on this very topic. I figured that'd be better than the one that what's his name? He is a sometimes religious, more political debater. Beard, Andrew Wilson, I think it is.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
I figured the IP would be more family friendly than the Andrew Wilson one.
You would be correct.
So I decided let's not pull that one up. It might be, and there's probably a David Wood one too, but that's IPs is also probably a little more family friendly than David Wood.
That one's kind of a toss up, but yeah.
At least in the way they present information.
That's true. Yeah.
David, they would talk about the same thing, but David would be more just blunt and saying this is what it is, and IP be more like using like the social media replacement words. So yeah. So I do have that off to the side as well. If there's any interest in going that direction, I don't think we reviewed that one. I think that was when we didn't review when we did Islam a few months ago. No, we did God Logic. We did David Woods. We did a different one with IP, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, anyways, did you have anything you wanted to start with regarding this?
Specifically start with? Not really.
Okay. So let me get something up here. So one of the things that we were kind of struggling with is that last stream and a couple streams ago, we were discussing whether or not the United States and the U.S. Constitution, if that and like Islam/Sharia law line up together. And funnily enough, I did find something today that was on that very thing, but we already talked about that. But so the point is that one of the things that was talked a lot about was Sharia law specifically. Now, the tricky thing is this. Sharia law is, when you try to find stuff on it, either, here's what I found, and I'm sure there's other stuff, I just was struggling. Either you find Muslims who are Western and are defending it and kind of downplaying some of the things that are happening there. You have very more far right people who are just lambasting and doing a genetic fallacy half the time.
Oh.
Or you have liberals who are trying to defend everything because to say that it is wrong is discrimination, and therefore truth cannot have its day. And therefore it's my truth, your truth kind of stuff. So it's kind of hard to find something that was not unbiased. But I thought this one was at least relevant. Not so much in that I think it gives us a ton of information, but I believe this is one of the institutions that was, I think, referenced in the IP.
Yaqeen?
Yes, Yaqeen. It's an Islamic university.
I thought for a second it said Yas Queen, and I was like,
not Yas Queen. So this was something that I think related to one of the. Let me remove the comments actually for a second. Related to the discussion that we had, we got to watch at DC. But the problem is they give very short blurbs and then a very long infographic. And you don't think it's long until you click on it. And then you realize, oh, it's long. It's very long.
Oh. Wow.
And I did in fact read through all
Queen.
of it.
What?
I did in fact read through all of it. So what I thought I would do is this, at least. This is an Islamic university. Caleb, you've spent more time looking at Islam than I, and you've known when they have downplayed things or when they have told the truth about some things. So here's what I was going to do. I was going to at least share their definition and their brief history that they give within these little paragraphs and see what you see, if that you think that's a fair definition or if you think that it is not really giving the correct story.
Oh boy.
So
right.
Got Sharia is the set of Islamic laws that encompass both the religious and secular practices of Muslims. Often redundantly referred to as Sharia law, Sharia encompasses the legal dimensions of Muslim life. It is akin to halakha, Jewish law. In fact, not only do Sharia and halakha play similar roles in Muslim and Jewish life, they share in linguistic parallels as well, just as the Hebrew term carries the meaning of being the way. Embedded within the meaning of the Arabic term Sharia is the idea of being the way or the path towards water. Sharia covers two broad domains, the rights of God and the rights of man. It informs and regulates most aspects of Muslim life and how one prays and washes to one governs and does business. Now, of course, they go into deeper detail here, giving examples where this is the stupid, ignorant Western, but this is the very patient, kind Muslim teacher. Anyways, but that's all they give you.
Hang on. Scroll down again real quick. I'm just going to point out, Sharia calls for chopping off hands and stoning for cheating on someone and lashes. It's just cruelty disguised as law by a God who's supposedly most merciful. And the response is, I am sure it gets into it more.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, but just that is hilarious to me. Just by a God who's supposedly merciful. He sure is, right? Like that's the only thing in the opening portion of the infographic that you see. It's just they chop off hands, but their God is allegedly merciful. Yes.
But prior to that infographic, all they give you is that little bit right there.
Yeah. So immediately they do something that I was going to bring up later. They distinguish between religious and secular practices of Muslims. In Muslim society, that distinction doesn't exist. Right? It's theocracy. It is religion in every single aspect of your life. Which, as a Christian, you might think, okay, well, that's good, right? We want religion in every aspect of our life. You want the true religion in every aspect of your life, right? Christianity tells you to do things as if for the Lord and not for man, right? This is telling you to model yourself after let's see, we're 19 minutes in. Cool, I'm clear of TOS. A pedophile, rapist, serial killer, thief, illiterate warmonger from the 7th century Middle East. So there's a difference between, hey, you should do these things because you want to please God who took on flesh and died for you, versus, hey, you should do these things because the pedophile rapist did them. And so I think we have to realize that Sharia, when it's infiltrating every single aspect of society, and they're making this weird distinction, weird for the Muslim perspective of there's religion and secular. No. It's the religion informs everything. Everything is a part of Islamic culture, right? It's they're not separate. That's why caliphates are political rulers as well as religious leaders, right? Everything is the mosque, if you will.
All right. So like what they try to do in several places, and I've come across a few papers that try to make this distinction as well. Let me see if I can find it in the infographics. That might be helpful just to have like a visual representation where they talk about two kinds, as you were just kind of talking about. So like here, I'll pull the infographic back up again. Here we go. So we talk about what Sharia comes from, is revealed by God, Quran, Sunnah, early Muslim application, and legal reasoning by Muslim scholars, also human effort to channel revelation of God. And they get into this discussion of the fiqh and
you do pronounce the H there. Just a quick.
You pronounce the H there?
Fiqh. We'll work on your Arabic another time, but yes.
Yes. I have put that to the side for a moment. But they get into this whole discussion of the fiqh and the hudud. I remember the U's were U's, if I remember correctly. At least in the general Arabic.
Mm-hmm.
But they get into these different categories of kinds of things. Like they distinguish, some of them are the articles I've gone through have distinguished Sharia and fiqh and hudud. Saying that these are different kinds of things. Some of them have argued for codes of like almost like codes and not necessarily legislation in all full regards. Kind of like going towards the arguments that people discuss regarding Torah and how like there's more code stuff there. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, could you pull the infographic back up real quick? Okay, so right there, you have American law, broad legal concept with variety and diversity and application based on state or locale. Sharia, the idea of God's law, right? So Sharia, they're saying, oh, well, it's religious and secular, but right there they have Sharia as defined as the idea of God's law, right? So it's inherently now religious because religion is just, what is it? It's the habit that pays God the respect he's deserved or something like that. I can't remember the exact quote off the top of my head, right? But like religion is a recognition of God. So if you're saying it's the idea of God's law, that's an inherently religious statement.
Right.
Already, your attempt to separate religion and secularized government has failed.
Yeah, they try. What they're seeking to do is to use the U.S. American law to try to use it as examples to demonstrate how how it works. Because the ultimate conclusion is they're saying, let me find the ultimate conclusion. We gotta scroll a little bit. Here we go. Okay, so is the Sharia barbaric? Well, you said that Sharia is the idea of God's law that governs every aspect of a person's life. Hudud crimes are violations of God's rights. Non-hudud crimes were punishable by tazir, and in hudud crimes, punishments were almost impossible to apply because of words. Tough requirements to be considered a crime, the importance of presuming innocence until proven guilty, and a fair and balanced court system, ending with, I guess it's not as terrible as I thought. That's okay. Legal system can always be a little tough to wrap our heads around. And then right down here, the Sharia is entirely justice, compassion, wisdom, and prosperity. Therefore, any ruling that replaces justice with injustice, mercy with cruelty, prosperity with harm, or wisdom with nonsense is a ruling that does not belong to the Sharia, even if its claim is to be so according to some interpretations. Perhaps these stringent laws, which God's mercy had made almost impossible to apply, existed primarily to remind people of the enormity of the sins that they usually get away with, and that is the furthest things from being barbaric. And so they go around the direction of treating it almost more like throughout it, almost like there is legal elements to it, there is punishments for it, and they would argue that it's more serious of a punishments than American law is, but that it's also teaching and like almost a code, more than just
kind of like Torah.
legislation. Yeah.
Which is all well and good, right up until, you know, you're reading through the Quran and you see law given that you can beat your wife. So, right? I mean, that's Surah 4, right? Surah An-Nisa, for example.
So what do you do with the people who say that Sharia actually provides more rights for women, protects their rights, such as people say like, well, they can buy and sell property, they can preserve this, they can do that, and all these things.
Can women, hang on, firstly, can women not do that under Western law? I feel like women absolutely can buy and sell property, and I mean, they can get driver's license. They aren't allowed to be beaten by their husbands if they're suspected of being unfaithful, right? So Surah An-Nisa, which is this fourth surah, talks about how women can be, if the husband suspects his wife, or, you know, wives, that's another thing, of being unfaithful to him, he can first admonish her, then he separates beds from her, and then if he believes it is still persisting, he can, quote unquote, strike her. Some put in brackets lightly, but the word lightly is not there in the Arabic. It just says to strike her. So I'm not really sure, right? If you do that in a Western country, you would rightly get arrested for domestic abuse.
Yeah.
But under Sharia, you can just do that because women are not seen as valuable. I think it's Surah 93. I might be wrong on that, which says that women are lesser by nature. They're deficient in mind. And then there's hadith talking about where Muhammad, there's hadith where Muhammad talks about how the majority of people in hell are women. And I think there's even a hadith, though I don't know about if it's isnad necessarily, where he says that the reason for that is because of the way they pee. Like squatting down to pee, he's like, that ain't it. Which begs the question, then how are they supposed to pee?
Just straight standing.
But just standing, just let it run right down the legs.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, I can't remember the exact hadith for that, and I'm blanking on the surah where it talks about women being deficient by nature, but it's saddening, right? And the idea that Muhammad is a feminist, that's an argument from like 20 years ago, which was so thoroughly and quickly debunked, right? If you want even further proof of that, I think it's Surah An-Nahl, whichever the 65th surah is, just talking about, you know, if your wives are too old to menstruate and you divorce them, so they have to wait 3 months before being married off, right? And then you also get the very next line of that same verse, of verse 4, in Surah 65, you get the unbelievably disgusting phrase, and if your wives have not yet menstruated, right? If they have not menstruated, meaning they're children, then somebody has to wait 3 months before they can be married again, right? So the idea that Muhammad is some uber feminist, not even close, right? He has 11 wives at one point. He has sex slaves. These are all well documented in the hadith, in the Quran itself, right? Like that's a joke, right? That women would have more rights under Sharia. Because you have to remember from Surah 33, that 33 ayat 21, that Muhammad is the pattern of conduct for all Muslims. So having multiple wives, abusing them, having sex slaves, that is the pattern of conduct for Islam. That is not pro-woman. Now compare that to, let's say, who Muslims always malign, Paul. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church, laying down his life for her. Right? So you are called in Christianity to lay down your life for your wife. Bars. You are meant to be sacrificial. You are meant to devote everything to one woman forever, just as Christ does for us. In Islam, you get to spend eternity raping children.
Yeah.
And your wife and your wife has to watch as you do it.
Oh. Lovely.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's awful.
So with this in mind, unless you want to add more to Sharia, I think we kind of like get a basic framework, kind of get your 2 cents in there, but also kind of show like here's what they're saying. It's always peaceful, it's good stuff, it's helpful, and then we can look at some statistics for some other things. Yeah. So for instance, I have this graph here. We're looking at the GRP, so that is, hold on, I can remember this, governmental religious preference. And so this is the Christian GRP right here. And we see here that there's a nice, good decline. And so we scroll around, we see that figure 3, which is the above graph, predicted probability of restoring to force against a state's Christian GRP when the threshold for using force is lowest. A state with the median non-zero Christian GRP 4.38 is 37% less likely to initiate an interstate armed conflict. And this entire paper is regarding interstate armed conflict. So Christianity with a lower percentage rate of doing such a thing. A state with the maximum Christian GRP 8.13 is 54% less likely. In each model, the graph shows a steady decline in the probability to use force as the Christian GRP score increases. It's important that I'm reading this one because he's going to be comparing stuff in a second with Islam. So here's, again, the Christian GRP. If I skip ahead a little bit too, a state with a non-zero median Christian GRP is 60% less likely to initiate a fatal armed conflict than a state with no Christian GRP. A state with the maximum Christian GRP is 73% less likely. So, whereas empirical results suggest that the states with Christian GRPs are less likely to use force, they also suggest that the states with Muslim GRPs are moderately more likely. Figure 4, which we'll see below, graphs the predicted probability of restoring to force against the state's Muslim GRP. At the lowest threshold of using force, a state with the median non-zero Muslim GRP 7.5 is 84% more likely to restore to force than a state with no Muslim GRP, versus an analogous Christian state being 37% less likely. However, this result does not necessarily indicate that Islam's positive correlation is stronger than Christianity's negative correlation. The median non-zero Muslim GRP is much higher than its Christian counterpart, which likely explains why the change in PR y equals 1 is so much greater for the Muslim GRP median. And so if we kind of just scroll down here, we see that it is the opposite direction of the Christian GRP. You have a steady increase, especially when you have it as more preferred with its governmental structure versus less preferred versus around the medium. Either way, it is still higher and goes, the more of a preference you have for a GRP score for Christianity, the lower the rate. The more likely you have a Muslim one, the higher the rate. And this is something you can find on JSTOR. This is paper is literally called the let me pull it up here. Influence of religion on interstate and armed conflict. I'll link it down below later. This is page, for them is page 811, 812. They pulled this out of the Journal for the Scientific Study of Religion. I think it was Davis Brown was the name, who did this study. And so I just kind of wanted to show this graph because already you see that Sharia law is the preferred law structure of Muslims, and it shows that the higher the Muslim rate of it being the governmental preference, the higher the interstate conflict and arms issue. And this is something that actually IP also brings up in his debate with Junior, of which Junior concedes and completely ignores.
So the Junior special.
The Junior special, yeah. And in fact, in Junior's opening statement, he goes on this pretty much big emotional tangent. That has nothing to do with the actual facts of the matter.
That kind of segues nicely into my thing, unless you got more.
I have more, but we can definitely bounce around. I have one that we can save towards the end. It's a paper. Just read a section that argues why Muslims seem to have more of a higher terrorist rate than other
Absolutely.
religions.
Do your thing. Do
But
your
that can be
thing.
done towards the end, depending on where you want to go next. Because it probably could tie in very well at the end.
All right, cool. Yeah. No, I just have just an insignificant 8 tabs. No big deal.
No, like I said, I have more stuff, but it's all revolving around the same idea. I have something for Lebanon, but depending on what you want to cover around Lebanon, I have an interview with Zakaria, done with European Conservative, where he goes over what happened in Lebanon, and then I have a couple papers that look at issues regarding war and Islam's higher rate of violence and terrorism.
Okay. Yeah. None of my stuff is going to take very long either. This is all just kind of quick little tossing things out there. So this is from Geopolitica. I don't really know much about it other than it looked like a fairly reputable source. And as one who went through some Islamic history in order to get through the Crusades, everything pretty much checked out here. So this just talks about the historical context. The point of this article is the economic and geopolitical consequences in the Mediterranean world, right, of the birth and rise and expansion of Islam, primarily by conquest. Right, and so it starts off, the expansion of Islam in the 7th century stands as one of the most transformative moments in world history, not only from a religious perspective, but also for its deep economic and global geopolitical consequences. Excuse me. The rise of an Islamic empire that rapidly extended from the Arabian Peninsula to North Africa and Persia radically changed the balance of power in the Mediterranean. This shift directly influenced trade routes between Europe and the East, and this is going to be the big thing. Right, and so they get the thesis statement. They give the background, right, that Momo comes out in the early 7th century among the pagans, and he starts to like unite people under this one religious identity and begins to conquer the pagans, the Jews, and the Christians of the area. And so it starts us right off here with the Arab conquests. There was rapid and strategic expansion. After the death of Momo, peace be upon him, in 632 Christ's era, the Rashidun caliphs, that should be Rashidun, caliphs launched a series of military campaigns that marked the beginning of Islamic expansion. Within just a few decades, Arab armies had conquered vast territories. Right, so in the Middle East, they took Syria, Palestine, and Iraq, which is important. North Africa, they conquered Egypt, another very important. Libya, Tunisia, and Algeria, and the Iberian Peninsula, which is enormous for history, with the invasion beginning in 711 Christ's era. These conquests were not merely military, but also administrative and economic in nature. The early caliphs established new tax systems, you don't say, promoted trade, debatable, and reorganized the conquered regions to strengthen Islamic political and economic control. That I would very much agree with. Right, but I find it funny they say here promoted trade. They're going to massively contradict that later. Like, hugely contradict that later. So then we have the geopolitical impacts of on the Mediterranean. Right, so by conquering Egypt and North Africa, Islamic forces gained control over the most important maritime routes of the Mediterranean. Strategic ports such as Alexandria, Carthage, and Tunis became central trade hubs connecting the East and the West. They drastically reduced the influence of Christian powers, particularly the Byzantine Empire, in the Eastern Mediterranean. European merchants increasingly had to rely on Muslim intermediaries to access Eastern goods such as silk, spices, and precious metals. So right there, they they put this paragraph right before this line.
Mhm.
And I got to think that was subconsciously intentional, because by stating that North Africa and Egypt, specifically Egypt, were taken over by the Muslims, and that drastically reduces the influence of Christian powers, right, because Egypt and most of North Africa was predominantly Christian. And the Muslims just go in there and just butcher everyone who does not submit, right? And they make them lesser citizens. They impose, as they call it there, they put new tax systems in place. Yes, things like the jizya, which for those who don't know, the jizya is the Muslim tax, or is the, I guess, the tax for non-Muslims in a Muslim society that they must pay because they are not Muslim. That's like actually their reasoning. So when it says that they took control of the maritime routes, what they mean is they went in, killed a lot of Christians, took over those areas, and imposed a tax for non-Muslims. And then, so remember, they said they promoted trade. The very next point they make, decline in direct trade between Europe and the East. Before the Islamic expansion, trade between Europe and Asia was largely conducted through the Byzantine Empire and the Eastern Mediterranean. However, once those territories came under Islamic control, trade routes were either closed to Christian merchants or heavily taxed, right? So if you are not a Muslim, you either cannot access the trade route at all, or if you can, you must pay very heavy taxes in order to get through, basically making business untenable. They continue on. This change led to several major economic consequences. Sharp increase for the price of spices, silk, and other Eastern luxury goods in Europe, right? So you get massive inflation. Rise of alternative overland routes through Central Asia and Russia. So what that means is they couldn't just take that nice parabolic line right through the Middle East anymore, because they would either be A, denied access, B, killed, or C, taxed so heavily that the journey isn't worth it anymore. Because not only do you have to pay the tax one way, you have to pay it coming back the other way too. So they have to instead go through Russia, which is not a fun journey. You can ask Hitler in 1942. Not a fun journey to make. Cross basically the entirety of the largest country on Earth just to then have a hook maneuver, actually, and come back into China, because you got to go around the Himalayas, right? They don't have our travel technology back then. They have to travel very, very long. Or if you don't, they only mention the overland routes there. Eventually, you get Magellan, who centuries later finally circumnavigates and makes it all the way around Africa and opens up that trade route. Notice the lengths that they are going to avoid the Islamic countries. That's because, again, they will literally just kill you. That does not lead to a good and flourishing society. That was devastating for the Middle East. You wonder why the Middle East remains significantly behind the Western world. That is in large part why. Because they just didn't have the business that they had under the Byzantine Empire. You can't cut through there anymore, right? It's actually kind of funnily analogous to the current situation with Iran, right? Iran currently is cutting off they were cutting off the Strait of Hormuz. That blocks a huge portion of the world's oil. Ergo, oil prices go up because now they've lost that route, right? They can't just go right through there anymore. Now they have to go around, or they have to find different routes. That's a huge inconvenience, and it costs a lot of money. This is the exact same situation, except on a much larger scale, a much wider scale. But some people were willing to pay, right? Because it's just like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's a game of pick your poison. let's just pay the tax and go through. Right? Like it's a lot safer. It's a little more economically damaging, but not by much, just because the distance that you have to travel otherwise, and the price you're already paying now for the increased goods. So let's just pay the tax and get through. So you do get Islamic port cities, like they mentioned, Alexandria, which you'll recall from up here. Where is it? There it is. So they just take that over completely and start using it for their own purposes. And then you get Damascus, which is in Syria, and later Cairo, obviously in Egypt. So they go in, take over a whole bunch of Christian territories, and then make it very difficult to do business if you're a Christian. You also get European ports just get absolutely wiped out in the Mediterranean. It leads to, as we mentioned, inflation, and the goods become much harder to get. They mentioned spices, silk, and this time gemstones. And once again, they even point out, sorry, like I did, first across the land and then eventually across the seas, leading to the Age of Exploration. Right? The Age of Exploration, we don't talk about this, is largely because they're sick and tired of paying the Muslim tax. So they're trying to find alternative routes that are economically viable and can open up new possibilities. At which point they
really
go
wants
around.
to pay that tax?
Huh?
I mean, who really wants to pay that tax?
Yeah, nobody, because there's such heavy taxes. It's like, I'm barely making any money on this trip, and I have to go all the way to India for it. Yeah. That's just not worth it to me.
A couple quick comments on Instagram. One spread through the word of God, the other through the sword. And then actually crazy how Islam single-handedly fossilized the values of 7th century Arabia.
Yeah. No, you are absolutely right about that. Islam very much still stuck in that 1400-year-old way. But
Islam is a fun little thing.
Sure, pal. Yeah, that's the words I'd use for it. But even the article, which I will remind you, said that they promoted trade. Right, so it's trying to be friendly to them, has to eventually concede. They say, ironically, the commercial blockade. Blockades do not promote trade. That's the opposite of what they do. That's literally, definitionally the opposite of what they do. Caused by Islamic expansion, stimulated innovation in Europe. Advances in shipbuilding, navigation, and finance were necessary to overcome trade restrictions. Italian city-states began to invest in maritime technology and banking systems, laying the foundations for the future commercial revolution and Renaissance. Right, so purely because the Muslims were so anti just everything that builds a flourishing society, the Europeans went, fine, we will flourish harder on our own and come up with all of these different innovations in order to get around your dumb garbage. Gnat in my face. They also then talk about how, the Byzantines didn't really like their territory getting taken over and their citizens killed. So they go to war with the Arabs and they lose. The Caliphate then takes over and unites everything under its rule. And this just eventually you have to, right? The reduction of direct trade, I thought that promoted trade. Reduction of direct trade with the East forced European kingdoms to establish new alliances and trading networks. Merchants from Venice, Pisa, and Genoa built partnerships with Muslim intermediaries, creating complex trading webs that reshaped medieval geopolitics. What that means is they were forced into relationship with the Muslims and eventually had to just succumb, and reshaped medieval geopolitics means, okay, we're poor now. Right? Like, if you're wondering why things like the Black Death were so easily spread, right, to kill a third of Europe, it's because they had to be in close proximity with one another because they're all poor, right? The feudal system in Europe is very much built on the fact that they can't just do trade like everybody else because the Muslims are blocking them. That doesn't build a flourishing society. That just ruins the world. You're still muted, my dog.
Keeps cutting off. Really funny comment over on Instagram. Islam indirectly created the iPhone.
You know, you're not wrong, though. You're not wrong, though.
That was pretty good.
Yeah. Islam has indirectly created the very thing that's destroying it right now, namely the internet.
Yeah. Well, it's just kind of tied.
Yeah.
Just think about like last time, you know, we didn't get to hear the other guy's perspective. But they're trying to. First off, when they were discussing whether or not Islam could be compatible with the U.S. Constitution, we were discussing how like they kept not answering the question, and the very fact that you had to distinguish between U.S. law and Sharia law already demonstrates that if that's God's law, Sharia law, in some capacity, that they don't follow, it means it is in opposition to the U.S. Constitution, therefore it is not the same. But then also, like, when you look at its actual practical effects and how it's being used, it's not lined up with that, and it's not what they say it is. Or you'd have to say that those countries are completely misusing it, which some Western Muslims will say. They will say that, but then again, they don't know the Arabic and or like the history of Islam, which also, you know, your prophet's history is recorded for you in many documents. Kaf, all of your heavy religious documents tell you, and if he's like standard of how like you ought to live and stuff like that, then you know that it's not in line with Western thinking. And like Christianity, it has a lot of Eastern thinking, obviously, but it's still like its principles and its teachings fit well with the U.S. and is actually the foundation of a lot of Western thinking. Even if we phrase things differently or have different philosophies today, the foundations are still from that very thing. Whereas like you'd have to argue for a radically different Eastern thinking for Islam in order to get around this idea that it is, oh, you know, it's just a misunderstanding on your part. It's like, really?
Yeah.
Another comment real quick. Got to distinguish between Islam and Arabs. Arab Christians are actual gems. And like for real, God bless the Copts.
Yeah. No, absolutely. We obviously have nothing against Arab Christians, right? Okay. We're going after Islam as an ideology, not necessarily a people group. Speaking of, just one more point to make from this. Just one more point to make from this article.
Sure.
I just want to read this last blurb because it's hilarious. Historical sources from both Islamic and Christian traditions offer contrasting perspectives on the expansion of Islam. Arab chroniclers emphasized divine guidance, administrative wisdom, and the unity brought by Islam, while European historians focused on territorial losses and economic decline. I'm just going to point out, like, nothing empirical really brought here. Everything empirical brought here. So they're like, well, clearly, since we won and we conquered, our God is better and our system is better. And look how united we all are. And the Europeans are like, they killed our friends and took our land. And now we can't make any money. And it's like, huh. But what I really got the kick out of was this here. Modern historians, however, provide a more nuanced view. Islamic did not destroy Mediterranean trade, but redirected it. And like they even put it in bold, but redirected it right away from the Mediterranean. They went to freaking Russia. People try to avoid Russia like the plague, and they were like, nah, we will choose Russia over that. Not doing that. Like that's actually hilarious, but redirected it. Yes, they did.
It's like they're trying to like. It's really just most of Western argumentation, at least more liberal Western argumentation, is like trying to either oversimplify or what was I looking for? Kind of like sugarcoat reality and put a different like little picture of it. So that way, you know, it's like, oh no, it's not that bad. They just redirected. How did they redirect it? Tell me, how did they redirect? Oh, wait a second.
Yeah. Well,
it's like the whole shift in the thinking of like the Crusades. You know, you had the Crusades before were like a defense, and then became for Christians, and then became no, the Crusades are purely Christian savages. It's like, where did we jump from one to the other? How'd you get here?
It's I was gonna say it's good when the Muslims do it. It's bad when the Christians do it. That's the line.
Even though we literally have empirical studies showing, which is we just saw one graph of how interstate arms, where you had Christians declining the more preference you have for it versus the Muslims increasing the more preference you have for it.
Yeah,
literally not the case.
And you know, and we're gonna look at a few other cases of that.
Oh boy.
But first, so you mentioned the Crusades. It's very topical. I wanted to talk about why the Crusades happened, right? So it'll be real quick. Just a list here of as it says here, formerly Christian countries that are now Muslim. Turkey used to be the Byzantine Empire, right? It was the cultural center of Eastern Orthodoxy. It is now Muslim, right? It's, as it says, now over 99% Muslim. You cannot be a Christian in Turkey. Huh?
It got hit hard.
Oh, it got hit real hard.
Like you can argue over like what empire. Like people have debates. I've heard people saying argue that the Byzantine Empire was one of the best empires, and people have argued for Rome and all these things. Was like they both got like hit hard the further along they went in life.
Well, and that's kind of the funny. I don't want to say beauty, but like the funny happenings of it. I don't know what word I'm looking for, but that's just, it's interesting to see, right? The old empires always get absolutely clobbered by the new ones, right? Like it's never a close fight. It's always just abundantly one-sided. And that's because of development of technology, right? So the new empire is new because it has new technology, right?
That's why it's able to take over.
Exactly. Well, that among, I would also point out there's a sociologist who did a study where he pointed out, and I'm now going to point out his pointing out, that great society, actually I think he was quoting Plato, but the data backed him up, that great societies never die from homicide. It's always suicide.
See, that was Plato. Would that be the Republic?
I think so.
It's been a minute.
It's been a hot second. Anyways, and again, we have Egypt. Right? Egypt was a Christian majority nation before the Arab conquest and is now over 90% Muslim. Egypt also experienced the quote-unquote ethnic cleansing of some of its Christian population. And then they point to an article here that just talks about the Muslim Brotherhood terrorist group killing women. So wonderful. Syria, historically home to one of the oldest Christian communities. That would be like Damascus. That's where Paul was on the road to when he encounters Christ. He is going to Syria. Now majority Muslim, again, due to ethnic cleansing, right? wasn't. It was the terrorist group that was in charge of Syria before Bashar al-Assad, because Bashar al-Assad, for all of his faults, really didn't target religious minorities, but the group that he took Syria from did. I don't remember what group that was. It might have been Al-Qaeda, actually, but I don't recall specifically. Iraq, once a Christian heartland, now overwhelmingly Muslim, with persecuted and sometimes ethnically cleansed Christian minority. North African nations, right? Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, formerly Christian under the Roman Empire, now predominantly Muslim, where ethnic cleansing has and continues to take place, right? So Morocco specifically, we talked about that last time, when the Christian Europeans and Americans showed up and said, hey, we're going to take away your slaves. The Moroccans said, you can't do that. It's a part of our religion. The Moroccans were Muslims. And then you even have Balkan states like Bosnia and Herzegovina, formerly part of Christian Eastern Europe, now about 50% Muslim, where mass violence against Christians took place. I will say, obviously, the Bosnian genocide was against the Muslims by quote unquote Christians. Obviously, if you're committing genocide, you're not exactly falling in line with the teachings of Christ. Christ not known for his genocidal tendencies. Then Albania converted to Islam under Ottoman rule and remain largely Muslim today. And Azerbaijan, before the Islamic conquests, Azerbaijan was a predominantly Christian region influenced by the Persian Empire and the Byzantine Empire. It is now 97% Muslim. So this in particular is sad because Azerbaijan is right next to the first ever Christian nation in Armenia and recently launched a war against Armenia. Which I guess shouldn't be surprising. Muslims launching wars against Christians. Tale as old as time. So all of that led to the Crusades. The main cause of the Crusades were the Muslim Seljuk Turks' oppression of, well, they say Jews and Christians. I'm going to be real with you. The European Christians at the time could not have given two poops about the Jews. Like they were very not big fans of the Jews. But of their fellow Christians, yes, they were very concerned about that, which that oppression and that violence led to the Byzantines being like, hey, we could really use some help, guys. It'd be great if we could just not be slaughtered. Please help. To which Jerusalem saw that and went, hey, yeah, we want some of that help too, please. We would like that yesterday. They're literally kicking our gates in. Okay, guys, they're here. They conquered us. Which then the Pope says, okay, let's go ahead and liberate those Christians from the Muslims who are just slaughtering, raping, and taxing them into no return. And then that led to, this is kind of like almost in order. That led to the Christians in Europe being like, yep, that's not cool. We should go and do something about that. And then you have the economic and political factors, which the Christians were like, this is really ridiculous that we keep paying the trade routes of the people who are now invading our lands and killing our brothers and sisters. Enough of that. Let's go and liberate the Holy Land. So we all, as Josh kind of mentioned earlier, like everybody likes to point to the Christians as like the barbarians and these savages and the Crusades who just went in and were like just killing all these peaceful Muslims. No. The Muslims were making offensive war against Christians and just slaughtering them mercilessly.
Oh, you mean like
they had already taken, huh?
You mean what happens in the Middle East today?
Exactly. Yes. So
without the guns.
Yeah, right. Without the missiles. This was just trebuchets.
Or the really stupid decisions in Afghanistan a couple years ago.
Yeah. You mean where we won the war, then decided to spend the next 15 years nation building, and then when that wasn't popular, we just pulled out and left everyone to die by the hands of Al-Qaeda.
And then we left all the really, important stuff there that,
Yeah.
to destroy it or send it away or whatever. Any of that. No. A couple of quick comments. Their logic is literally that if they win, it's because God is on their side. And if they lose, it's because they weren't Musliming hard enough. I love the phrasing. I will point out that's probably most religions in the world. But I do love the phrasing.
Yeah. They weren't Musliming enough.
And then generational memory, haven't forgotten, referring probably to the Byzantine Empire because they have the EO cross as an emoji.
Nice. Yeah, that one I can understand, like generational trauma, just because of how hard you just got.
Yeah. I didn't like that you did that. It's almost like when there's that one video of Ant-Man where he shrinks down and goes up Thanos. It was like that kind of thing. Like, all right.
All right. So you mentioned that you had some other things you wanted to share. I'll take a brief break from mine because I don't have a good segue.
Let's go with this. I have two we could do. One we don't need to read a ton of. It kind of deals with Lebanon a little bit. Probably just wanted to read a few of the different quotes that were
Sure.
shared in this interview by Henry Zakaria. So let me get this switched over because this kind of plays into what you were just talking about, and the context of it is the concern of like how this will impact. How these events, such as Lebanon, kind of are signs that are reappearing for Europe in general, and that these are signs that they should be looking out for, and how they should be addressing them. So I have
an article along very similar lines. So yeah.
Yeah, we're not going to necessarily go through all this. I just kind of wanted to read a few of the quotes because I thought they were interesting. As again, Henry Zakaria, he gives more of like a historical report on some of these things. So, for instance, he says the main reasons for the declining Christian population in Lebanon are. Sorry, I mean, I just realized it's probably not big enough for you guys. Hopefully, that's better. Let's see. Let's try that again. The case of Lebanon represents a warning to Europe, which appears to be quickly Islamizing.
You good?
Islamizing, I guess would be the way to pronounce that. As a result of mass migration and declining Europe birth rates.
Islamizing.
Close enough. Henry Zakaria, a Lebanese activist.
Just in case you have to say it again.
No. Who advocates for a Christian nation in Mount Lebanon, told European conservative the main reason for the declining Christian population to Lebanon are the civil war, emigration, and the loss of sovereignty. Christians left after decades of instability, economic collapse, and occupation by Islamic forces, which is interesting because if we think back to the beginning of this, we're talking about Sharia law and how, they were talking about how it's this good system that is God's system and all these things, but you're seeing that this system, which you would assume is the one they're running under, leads to instability, economic collapse, and then occupation of other things as they're included. So yes, you could say, well, sure, it's the implementing of this over the old system, but the fact that there's still instability, period, is concerning. And so people are leaving not just because of persecution, but also because it's just not livable there. And so things are just declining. The current political system favors demographic imbalance and makes Christian life unsustainable. It can only be reversed by restoring autonomy and self-rule in Mount Lebanon. The demographic shift toward a Muslim majority accelerated after the Arab War against us. Christian immigration rose sharply while Shia and Sunni families expanded demographically and moved into areas that were once Christian. The changes wasn't natural growth. It was a replacement through invasion, occupation, ethnic cleansing, and political manipulation. So yes, this is an activist, but you're getting similar information regarding the history of what's going on, which is not something you really hear. And this is in the context of talking about signs that Europe should be watching out for, which I would say as Americans, yes, Muslims think they're as they're in stage 2, as Caleb talked about last time. Actually, many streams ago, we talked about how they think they're in stage 2, moving to stage 3, but in reality, they're more in stage 1, trying to get to stage 2. But even then, you can argue for like specific states in the U.S. that are trying to go, where they're trying to at least get to that stage 2. New York City being one of those where they're trying with Mamdani to get into that stage 2 and hopefully move over into that stage 3 area, because he's been promoting them and kind of being an activist for them in many ways, as well as several others.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. They sort of skipped the stage 2 and went right to stage 3 without having stage 2, right? So they went stage 1, we're just here, don't mind us, just leave us alone. We just want to live. And then they elected a Muslim. Like they went straight from, they don't have population majority yet. So it's weird. They have what they need for a takeover, quote unquote, in terms of political office. They don't have it in population, and usually it goes minority, majority, political. So it's kind of funny that the last two.
Well, it just makes me laugh because, you know, one of the big things that people talk about when it comes to Muslims is the very fact that they have they're a very large religion, of which you and I have commented before that part of it is due to one. It probably is a big religion, but in terms of like its actual followers, the question is who's actually following it, but then also who is saying that they are just to keep their head on their neck. I know I messed up there. Head on their head. Estimation my head.
I mean, it kind of is. Right? Like it kind of is a head on a head. I'm trying to help you out, man.
I know, but you also have the fact that they do like have tons and tons of children, of which they raise up because they are a religion that you are born into. This religion, you're directly born into. Now, there's some other ones that are like that too, but there's also others where you're not born into it, but you are born into it for Islam, and so they have high birth rate, which makes me laugh.
Don't you know that every person is born a Muslim?
Oh. If you argue for Muslim is just simply to be a Muslim is just simply obeying God, of which or submit to God.
Of course.
Because Jesus was a Muslim apparently. Sorry. Excuse me there. But
brother, what's that? What's that, brother?
But it makes me laugh because we have a mutual friend in our church who is known for having this. He's one kid short of having the Northern Kingdom.
Yes.
Of which I tell him he said he's not gonna be able to, with his wife, to do any more biological because she's had some health issues, but with the last couple. But he says the doctor's on the table like, you know, you're not too far from the nation of Israel. He said, well, you know, I got to keep up with the Muslims. You got to give them some kind of army to fight. It's like, all right, sure. Anyways, back to this. Let's see. So I thought that was pretty interesting. This article. Why are you so much smaller than before? There we go.
I did it.
All right. So let's see here. We left off it. So he also looks at the effects of Syrian and Palestinian invasions against Lebanon. Palestinian terrorists groups invaded Lebanon after the 1948 war in Israel and again in the 1970s, turning their camps into terror zones. Syria invaded in 1976 under the pretext of peacekeeping and remained for 30 years. Both ways have destroyed Lebanon's stability and its Christian identity. Hezbollah grew in the 1980s with Iranian funding and Syrian protection. When Christian forces disarmed after the war, it kept its weapons under the excuse of resistance. Over time, it captured the state. The army, and all key institutions. It is now the ruler of the Republic of Lebanon, which has effectively become an extension of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And so he keeps going around this. I mean, it's not a long article. and even then, like they move on to other topics. There's a bunch of like subtopics, but they're all based on Lebanon. Like here, Lebanon's effectively divided. Christians mainly live in Mount Lebanon in the north, while Muslims dominate the south and the Bekaa Valley. Day-to-day relations are mostly civil, but trust is weak, and coexistence is more geographic than social. Which people who have those coexistence stickers just have no idea like how world religions work.
Not at all. Not even a little bit.
It's when your religion teaches conquest and violence to have to expand this religion, then you can't do coexistence. Just logically speaking, that they are, if it's required them to do such a thing, like like it is in Islam, they can't technically coexist in the sense that the Western people want us to do. They actually are required by their text to go out and conquer. So you're actually
Surah 930, right? Surah At-Tawbah. Yeah, Surah At-Tawbah, which is the 9th surah, is literally says, "Go and fight the unbelievers until they either believe or pay the jizya."
Like quite literally, you can't say you can't. You're trying to import your thinking onto them, which is funny because most people who are trying to do that are upset with you when you try to enforce your morality on them. Which when you have morality is what you're kind of doing anyways. That's just how morality works. And they're like, why are you imposing your morality on me? He's like, you're imposing yours on me. You're saying that they have to do X, but you're saying we can't judge a religion, but you're speaking against the religion. They are required to go out and conquer. Quite literally. But the point being is that kind of got into, so I didn't need to spend, I guess, too much more time with that specific article because you kind of already touched a little bit on it with the other stuff. Regarding the other nations that were one-time Christian and shifted. This was just another one of those cases that was specifically looking at Lebanon and how it is primarily Islam. Yes, you have some pockets of Christianity, but as I said, they're geographically coexisting, not socially, not politically. They're like pretty much just trying to survive.
Yeah, and that honestly covered what I wanted to kind of talk about with the article that I had found, so it would just be repeating. We don't really need to go over it. I do want to point out, though.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. There we go.
So,
I want to look at some before and after.
Sure.
Right. So it mentioned the Syrian invasion, right? The Syrian Muslim invasion of Beirut, of Lebanon specifically, in the 70s. So I want to look at Lebanon before then. Right, so this is 1960s Lebanon, and this is the capital city of Beirut. Look how vibrant and colorful and thriving. There's trees everywhere. Right? There are people out living their life freely. It kind of looks like Southern California.
A little bit, yeah.
Like, this is gorgeous stuff. This is what it's turned into. All of that dead area and destruction. And now they'll show you this photo, right? They show this photo. Huh?
That's a nice photo.
It is. And they'll keep showing it to you on Google Images from like 40 different angles. Because it's like one of 3 nice photos of current day Lebanon. Or current day Beirut. Like, this is the other one they like to keep putting up there. But as you scroll through, you'll notice there's no trees, really. The trees are gone. You just get gray city skylines. Right? Hey, look, a tree. A tree. Do you remember the palm trees that we were seeing before? And it's just gone. It's all gone. Right?
Now, is that an issue? Now, is that more of an issue of the conquest, or is that just the issue of the development of cities in general? Because you see that also in our country as well.
You do, but notice that. I mean, here, let me pull it back up. The 1960s Beirut was a bustling metropolis. Right? Like, look at all the cars there. We were seeing all the people. And yet it's still just this area of ornate beauty. But then when Syria came in, they just... Hang on. They destroyed the place. This is what most of Beirut looks like. Not the really nice photos that we're just going to show you the same angles, right? Like, this is the same exact angle. They just flipped the image. Where'd it go? This is what most of Beirut looks like. This is what it looks like now. It's just dead. That's what Islam did to Lebanon. But it's not just the countries necessarily. I have one more thing. Do you have anything else?
I have an article, but we don't need
two more things.
Okay. Regarding perspectives on terrorism, but we also don't need to do that today.
I mean, we can. We're only an hour and 21 minutes in. But I have two more things. One of them is going to take us like 3 minutes. The other one probably a little bit longer, but not too terrible.
Go for it.
All right, sick. So this is currently nothing. This is a graph talking about countries with slaves, right, in today's world. I'm going to point out Muslim country, Muslim country. 2 of the top 6 countries that still permit slaves are Muslim countries. The other 4, well, 3 of the 4 have socialist / communist / state capitalist affiliations. And then there's India, which, like, the frick is going on over in India. I will say, though, for the population size that India has, that's, as terrible as it is to say, that's not a huge percentage of the population that's slaves. I mean, India is a nation of 1 billion people. 11 million is, again, perspective-wise, not that much. Awful to say. I agree, but... So I want to scroll and take a look at this graph here. So you get India, China, North Korea, Pakistan, Russia, Indonesia, Nigeria, majority Muslim, Turkey, majority Muslim, Bangladesh, strong Muslim population. And then you will see the United States. You might be like, well, hang on. Western country. And yet, there it is in the top 10. What's up with that? That's because people are illegally sex trafficked across the southern border. That's what that number is. Estimated 1,091,000 sex slaves illegally trafficked across the border. And the evidence here, you have this column here, right? So government response, higher is better. I don't necessarily know exactly what the percentages mean, but they say higher is better. I imagine that that's talking about government involvement in trying to end the slavery. United States is tied at the highest percentage in this entire chart at 67%. The US government is working, or sorry, it's 1 point behind the United Kingdom, which is at 68%. So it's tied for second highest. All of these countries are Western countries. I'll scroll until we reach. Okay, here we go. Albania is a Muslim majority country, I believe. You have to get outside of the top 15 before you get a country. an Islamic country that's actually doing something about the slavery in its society. And then you can go and then you finally get to Azerbaijan outside of like the top 30, outside of the top 25. Vulnerability scores, the lower is better. So these are all of the top ones. This is how likely the country is to have slavery. Look how many Muslim countries you see. Right? You get Somalia, Yemen, Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, Pakistan, Libya, Nigeria, Mali, Iran. Right? You can just keep going down the list, and you're just going to keep finding all of these countries which are very likely to have slaves in them. You get estimated slavery rate. Let's go to the lower end. None of these are even, or like not a single one. Algeria is the first per 1,000 slave rate. And that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Where did Finland go? Oh, there it is. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18th. The point there is Muslim countries very much have slaves and are very much okay with that. You unmuted. I thought you had something to say.
Comment for later.
Gotcha. Also, I will just point out, this is a heat map regarding slaves. Boy, this area of Balkans where the Muslims took over is quite hot, as is Azerbaijan, as is Turkey, as is Iran, as is Iraq, as is Syria. Right, Jordan, all of these Muslim countries still have slaves. Last thing. Islam and authoritarianism. Now, this is an analysis of an article by M. Stephen Fish. And M. Stephen Fish did his darndest to try and prove that Islam is not negatively associated with democracy. There's not a negative correlation between Islam and democracy. He couldn't. What he attempted then to do was to show that it's not the fault of Islam. It's external factors. It's things beyond their control. And so this is just an analysis of his article, because his article is much longer than this, and I didn't want to go through the whole thing. So I thankfully found sort of an analysis and summary. Right. So the structural and cultural variables that Fish used. The analysis says Fish tests several hypotheses using quantitative analysis, focusing on structural and cultural variables, as well as specific historical influences such as colonial and communist heritage. Economic development. Generally, economic development is positively correlated with democracy. Okay. Ethnic fractionalization. Sociocultural division affect governance, but their impact varies. Islamic religious tradition. Predominantly Muslim countries are hypothesized to be more authoritarian. Historical legacies. Colonial and communist pasts also influence current regime types, right? So that's what he's expecting to find going into this. The empirical findings, right? He talks about the methodology. The study uses Freedom House scores and polity scores to measure the level of democracy, bolstered by extensive control variables like GDP per capita, sociocultural divisions, and historical context. Right? And so these are the actual findings of his study. Islam. I know we're all shocked here. Islamic countries scored significantly lower on both Freedom House and polity scores. That means they scored significantly lower on democratic freedoms. They are not positively associated with democracy. They are negatively associated with it. They are positively associated with authoritarianism. Economic development. Higher GDP per capita was strongly associated with better democracy scores. Sociocultural division. More diverse societies showed lower democracy scores, although this factor was not always significant. Economic performance. Strong economic performance correlated positively with democratic governance. And this part really was eye-opening to me. So, British colonial heritage. Former British colonies tended to have better democracy scores compared to others. When I initially wrote down this topic, it's because I had an exchange with somebody who claimed that the West ruined the Middle East. That finding right there completely refutes that idea. That the places which were British colonies did better. Because it turns out when you bring Western values and you enforce Western values and you enforce Christian values, because Western values are rooted in Christian tradition, you tend to have a better society. No freaking way. Then you get communist heritage. This variable was less decisive with mixed impacts observed. Fair enough. And then OPEC, oil-rich countries often exhibited more authoritarian traits. What countries are in OPEC? Could it be a ton of Muslim countries? And you're saying they're more authoritarian? Wow.
No.
I was expecting... Hang on.
Wow.
Where is it? Joshua.
I have no idea what you're saying.
I said sorry for everyone wearing headphones.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so this is what Fish attempted to do in order to get around these empirical findings. And he used detailed regression models. So more sophisticated multivariate regression models were used to control for possible interdependencies among the variables. The inclusion of economic and sociocultural controls still showed a significant negative coefficient for Muslim countries, implying other factors beyond just economic development and diversity. Models also demonstrated an interesting interaction between oil wealth and authoritarianism, particularly among OPEC members. Gee, you don't say. Gender and authoritarianism. Gender inequality emerged as a significant predictor of authoritarianism of the empirical model. You don't say. Literacy gap. Wider gaps in literacy rates between men and women were strongly associated with lower democracy rates. Sex ratio. Misbalanced sex ratio, often reflecting poorer treatment of women, correlated with authoritarian regimes. Women in government. Higher participation of women in government rules positively influence democracy scores. Now that I think actually should be read the other way around. I think higher democracy scores lead to a higher participation of women in government, not higher participation of women in government lead to higher democracy. That doesn't really make sense, because in order to have the women participate in government, they need to be democratically elected. So like that should be the other way around, but I get what you meant. The very fact that the women are in government is indication of democracy. And then gender empowerment measure. This comprehensive index further validated the positive relationship between gender equality and democratization. Holy crap! Democratization. Shut your fingers.
Shut my fingers.
You what?
I can't say shut your mouth because you weren't speaking. That's actually that's actually my internal monologue right now.
Well, speaking of which, we had Chaos that commented, was that a scream that I heard referring to?
Yes.
Yes, it was.
It was.
And then over on Instagram, real quick, 2 comments. Actually infuriating with Mamdani. Muslims helped elect him, true, but most of his voters are dopey with white liberals from the Midwest. Transplant New Yorkers voted for Cuomo. And then Muslim country are literally just ruled by clerics.
Yes. No, absolutely. And that's what this article is going to miss, right? It's setting up this.
Correct.
Exactly. Yeah. Great meme. It's setting that up, right? It's setting up that, but here we go. We'll keep going. Don't jump the gun yet. Not yet, my friend. Fish argues that gender inequality, this is the article, particularly the poor status of women, is a crucial factor linking Islam and authoritarianism. The regression models showed that accounting for gender inequalities diminished the negative impact of Islam on democracy scores. Sentence A contradicts sentence B. Fish argues that gender inequality, particularly the poor status of women, is a crucial factor linking Islam and authoritarianism. Right, dude. Because Islam treats women poorly. But then sentence B says the regression model consistently showed that accounting for gender inequalities diminished the negative impact of Islam on democracy scores. No, guys, the women are treated poorly because they're in an Islamic society. The same society that says you can beat your wives, that women are deficient, that you can have multiple wives, and that you can marry children and rape them. That's why. So then we have our Muslim societies more prone to violence, which Josh already showed us. They are much more likely to use force. Fish dispels the hypothesis that Muslim societies are inherently more violent, which might predispose them to authoritarian government. Instead, he emphasizes the complexity and variability within Islamic societies. That's it. That's the argument. There are no stats cited. There are no variables cited. He just says, it's complex. Yeah, it's complex, right? We don't know. We can't know for certain. There's a lot that's going on. There's a lot of variables. Exactly. That's extremely suspicious.
Gay!
Okay, now you're just playing sound effects.
Why are you gay?
Role of state and religion. Islamic countries often face critiques for not maintaining a strict separation between church and state, a feature commonly associated with Western democratic traditions. However, Fish highlights that many predominantly Christian nations also have intertwined religious and political spheres. Ladies and gentlemen, if you turn in the dictionary to the word whataboutism, this will be the example they give. This is such a whataboutism. It doesn't even make the point he wants it to. So, okay. Let's walk through the thinking for a second here. Islamic countries often face critiques for not maintaining a strict separation between church and state. Okay. A feature commonly associated with Western democratic traditions. Okay. So obviously, that sentence is setting up a but, right? It's going to offer a reason as to why that's not true. That's how basic argumentation works. And you get the word however. So you're like, okay, great. Right? It's obviously about to give the reason as to why Islamic nations either are separating church and state, or how them not doing that is not a problem. However, Fish highlights that many predominantly Christian nations also have intertwined religious and political spheres. And now, guys, our argument is not that church and state mixing creates authoritarianism. The argument is that Islam creates authoritarianism. It is not that religion and politics cannot mix, otherwise you get authoritarianism. That's not the argument. The argument is that specifically Islam creates authoritarian states. Just saying, but the Christians do it too, is not an argument. If we are discussing, do Christian societies tend towards authoritarianism, then that's a conversation we can have. But that's not what we're asking. The question and the literal freaking title of the article is Islam and Authoritarianism. Just saying. No, go ahead.
It's almost like, he knew the answer, but he's trying to get around it.
Trying
Or
so
else-
hard.
Either he's trying to get around it because he can't accept the truth, or he needs the money from whoever's
He's
paying
getting
him to produce it. Because, like, if you're
Proof! The proof!
because, like, if that's the if before was like that one little blurb to answer a crucial question, and it's like basically hand waving it, and then here's like, well, what about that? It's like, all right, clearly you know the answer and you're trying to get around it because you have no way to justify otherwise.
Nope. No, that it's actually hilarious. Like, I know I use that word a lot, but that's because it keeps things keep being hilarious. They keep causing hilarity.
I mean, hilarity.
It's painful, dude. Like, the sheer whataboutism, which highlights the exact problem. Christian societies, as noted in this article, i.e. Britain, are positively associated with democracy and negatively with authoritarianism. So let's say that graph goes like this. The Islamic graph goes like this.
Oh, you mean the one I showed earlier?
Why? Oh, yeah, exactly.
is.
Yeah, you can go ahead and pull that real quick. I do want to read the conclusion, though, because it's really funny.
I mean, this one where here's the Christians GRP versus the Muslim GRP.
GRP is just
coming up. There it is.
Yeah.
Literally the exact opposite direction.
Exactly.
What's the Buddhist one? It's just
a line.
Just a flat line. It has no effect at all.
There's
no increase,
effect.
no decrease. They just exist.
Which honestly is a decent polemic against Buddhism. Right? Because truly, if this philosophy is all about giving up the desire, you should see a negative trend. That's interesting. Okay. All right, let's finish this out, and then I'm got everything that I wanted to look at. This one. Okay. So, conclusion. The paradox of Islamic authoritarianism. Now, mind you, the entire point of this article was to disprove a link between Islam and authoritarianism. That has not happened. Like, at all. Like, not even a little bit. So let's see. Maybe they tie it all together nicely in the conclusion. Well, oh crap. Oh my goodness, it's just scrolling fast. There we go.
Good job.
Thanks, man. Well, while empirical evidence supports a link between Islam and lower levels of democracy, great. That should just be there should be a period there, and then it should list the reference. Notice I said reference. There's one. While empirical evidence supports a link between Islam and Davis.
You were delayed on that part, okay? I did that in your silence, and then you started talking. That's on you.
While empirical evidence supports a link between Islam and lower levels of democracy, attributing this solely to religious tradition is oversimplistic. Economic factors, historical legacies, and particularly gender dynamics play substantial roles. Hey guys, do you know what impacts all three of those categories? Islam. Fish's research invites a nuanced understanding, moving away from deterministic views and towards appreciating the complexity of socio-political environments in Muslim-majority countries. Efforts to enhance democratization should, therefore, consider multifaceted strategies that address economic development, education, gender equality, and historical contexts. Now, the problem is that article is entirely written by a Westerner, by somebody who, right, because M. Stephen Fish, not exactly a name you're going to find walking the streets of Iraq.
Sure.
You know. So the issue there is that is a person who has grown up living in a tradition where church and state are kept relatively separate, presumably. He doesn't understand that for Muslims, there is no separation. Their religion is their government. And it has been so from the beginning. Muhammad ran the Islamic Caliphate. He was the king, both politically and religiously. Excuse me. The Islamic Caliphate was clerics and scholars making up the ruling political class. At his death, Ayatollah Khamenei was called a devout religious scholar. I think it was the New York Times, which is just such a joke at this point. And then was it maybe I think it was the Washington Post when al-Baghdadi died that called him an austere scholar, an austere religious scholar. Right? Like, these guys, their government is being run by their priests, by their imams, by their sheikhs. Sheikhs. Excuse me. Right. Their religious leaders are their politicians. They are one and the same. So before we go saying, oh, well, you know, it's all of these other factors, you as a Westerner have to understand Islam is their world. It is their government. It is their lifestyle. It is their everything. There is nothing apart from Islam. It is not like a Western country where you can have state and you can have religion. You can only have religion, and that informs the state. That informs gender dynamics. That informs their historical context and how they look at history. That informs their economics. Everything is done to further Islam. That is all that these countries do. And if we do not turn around, we will be headed in that exact same direction. We are looking at this as Westerners and going, well, it's a religious issue, but it's not a state issue. It's not a politics issue. That's not how they are looking at it. Right? We go back to the Quran. Surah 3, Ayat 28 says not to take the non-believers as governors, not as religious leaders, as governors, because Islam is political by nature. You cannot separate the politics from the religion. The politics are the religion, and the religion is the politics. It's both. So we in the West need to quickly realize, oh crap, this is a huge political problem as well as a religious one. Because that's exactly how the Muslims are looking at it, and that means they are 10 steps ahead of us. The good news is we can catch up fairly quickly. We just have to be willing to actually do the dirty work. I'll leave it up to you if you want to do the interview. Like you were. I don't have work super early in the morning, so.
In short, it was pretty much. Find the right one. I'll pull it up, I guess, real quick. Share this screen instead.
Well, you do that. I'm gonna go warm up my dinner because it's almost 10 o'clock.
Nice. All right. Should be coming in for you all now. Like I said, in short, it's a longer article. It's 13 pages. I mean, it's not terrible long. But he's looking at perspectives on terrorism. And so the question kind of begins like, why is it that Islam has this higher rate for some reason? And so he goes through different key aspects. He looks at fundamentalism. He looks at religious involvement. He looks at religious commitment, homogenization. And they get to the conclusion, but I want to say the conclusion because I want to look at what he defines fundamentalism as, because that's one of the key things he looks at. So let's see. Probably the term most linked with religious extremism and terrorism in particular is fundamentalism. Broadly speaking, it refers to a strict adherence to a belief system. This has elsewhere been referred to as scripturalism. Alternatively, fundamentalism has been defined in terms of a reaction towards changing contexts that threaten particular beliefs. Emerson and Hartman emphasize this contextual nature of a negative connotation, primarily being used to denote radical and violent movements. However, the use of fundamentalism in empirical research is closer to scripturalism. We also must differentiate those with absolute personal beliefs from those who desire to enforce personal beliefs on a collective system. So he defines it as below: the belief that there is one set of religious teachings that clearly contains the fundamental, basic, intrinsic, essential, inerrant truth about humanity and deity. That this essential truth is fundamentally opposed by forces of evil, which must be vigorously fought. That this truth must be followed today according to the fundamental, unchangeable practices of the past, and that those who believe and follow these fundamental teachings have a special relationship with the deity. So, and so he goes right here and he gets to this point down here where he's looking at self-reported religious fundamentalist groups, some being with no affiliation, then Buddhists, Hindu, Jew, Muslim, Orthodox, other Protestant, Catholic. And so he was saying that when you look at one of the things he points out in this article is when you look at the higher religions in the world, Muslim is more fundamental than some of those. And so you can read through all this stuff. I'm going to keep it brief, but I want to get to the conclusion just because I think this kind of gets to the point. There is a necessity within the field of terrorism studies to more adequately address theoretical perspectives of both the rise of terrorism, the current predominant types of terrorism, and effective preventative measures to reduce terrorism. The rise of Islamist terrorism and the overwhelming position that Islamist terrorism holds within the realm of religious terrorism is currently in need of further exploration. Emphasis on psychosocial factors assist in examining the reasons for Islamist terrorism predominating within religious terrorism. Is Islam more susceptible to religious terrorism than other religions? While the current article does not adequately answer this question, it does enhance our understanding of proposed avenues for further research. First, empirical work evaluating religious fundamentalism is clear in its implication that fundamentalist beliefs are related to racial prejudice, hostility toward violating outgroups, support for violence against outgroups, and anti-Western sentiment. Okay, so that's like a really key thing right there. Is he was saying that with this fundamental thinking of Islam, you have an increase racial prejudice, hostility towards violating outgroups, support for violence against outgroups, and anti-Western sentiment. So like following it in its most fundamental way leads to these 4 key things. The data in this article suggests that followers of Islam do on average hold more fundamentalist belief than do believers from other religious groups. This increased fundamentalism may create more susceptibility to the calls for action from extremist Islamist clerics, helping to explain why religious terrorism is predominantly Islamist. The finding also implies the fundamentalist beliefs may be targeted by the religious elite to reduce susceptibility to calls to jihad. And so, like I said, he goes on other things. He goes to explain the other aspects he goes through. He's saying that some of them might not be necessarily great indicators, but they're things that should be considered because the question is what they teach. But I thought that the really key thing right there is that in the fundamentalist perspective, so just to read fundamentalism again, his definition that he's working with, that is developed by Altemeyer and Hunsberger, the belief that there is one set of religious teachings that clearly contains the fundamental, basic, intrinsic, essential, inherent truth about humanity and deity, that this essential truth is fundamentally opposed by forces of evil which must be vigorously fought, that this truth must be followed today according to the fundamental, unchangeable practices of the past, and that those who believe and follow these fundamental teachings have a special relationship with the deity. Effectively meaning that they're following it to the letter of what's being written, and that they think it should not be changed, it cannot be changed unless like God decides to change it, and that this is the way it is. And I just thought that was just kind of really interesting. He gets in there. I'll put this below. You can read through this. Like I say, you may not necessarily explain everything, but just with the time that we have, I don't want to add too much for those who are probably getting tired and need to go to bed soon. But hopefully that just kind of gets some of the information out there that why and where this stuff is coming from. There's studies out there and things are fighting with different stuff that's showing that this is not good for society. It has higher rates of problems and violence. And so when people say Sharia law is good for society, it's like when you see all these societies that are following these procedures, they're not succeeding great in the way that you would want to morally. You're seeing a lot of issues and things that Western values definitely do not agree with, Christian values do not agree with. And so it's just a major mess and a major problem. Caleb is still warming up his food. I am going to see if there's any other comments. Let's see. On Instagram, also Christian countries for centuries were technically theocracies and did better than Muslim countries. I wonder why. Yeah. Let's see anything else.
Sorry, did that say first century Christian countries?
4 centuries.
4 centuries. Gotcha. Yeah, like the Roman and Byzantine empires. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, yes and no. There was still definitely a separation of political stature there, but chicken sandy.
No. What? Nope. Interesting.
Ah, that's hot.
I can't.
Okay. There we go.
Whoa. Oh, wow. Your audio changed significantly.
Better, right?
A lot better. I'm so glad you did that right at the end of the stream.
Well, so I noticed I was looking over to my side because, as I said beginning, I had 2 computers set up. And I noticed that the one I'm streaming on, like I'm doing was behind this computer. So then I was shifted over to hear you a little more quickly. And I was like, why does that sound like that? So I went to my audio. But here's the annoying thing.
Hmm.
It's I didn't change microphones. It's gave me two options for the same microphone, and I just switched to the other option, but it's the same microphone.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm curious. We try.
How does this sound?
Oh no, no, no.
How about this?
Yeah, that's better.
Great. So the past two streams have sounded like garbage.
I don't recall if last stream did, but yeah, this
I'm
one there was definitely like some background noise, and I was just kind of ignoring it.
well. That's also the air conditioner.
Yeah.
Well, now I know what was going on. Welcome to what my microphone actually sounds like. This is what this is the good microphone sounds. So either oh no, I know what happened. It marked it to as default, and it changed it to my webcam's microphone, which is all the way over here.
Hmm.
And it didn't tell me, even though I set it to this one. That makes me mad. And you didn't tell me that it sounded like butt until now.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, well. Hey, Josh, your mic sounded like butt for most of the stream.
You know what? You know what? You had an obligation, and all of you watching had an obligation to tell me, Josh, your microphone sounds off right now. Fix it.
Well, if you want to hear Josh in better audio, you can like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, making sure to hit that notification bell so that way you know whenever we post or go live. We have a ton of content on 4 different channels, so there's something for everyone. I have chicken stuck in my teeth.
Yeah,
And
we
let us
got
know.
now that I sound better, we have regular, which is gonna have Caleb's LDS videos coming out next week. With some pieces appearing on Apologia. Apologia is more of our polemics and clips channel of the stuff we do on live streams, and then mostly Caleb's polemic work that he does. He has some new ideas that I don't know if he's actually going to run with, or if he's still bitter about how he ended last stream and therefore has forgone those ideas. Based on the eye squint when he gets, he's still bitter.
I'm still pissed. And thank you. I honestly put that out of my memory, and now that's back. So thank you.
That's what I'm here for. Anyways, so we will be Apologia has that kind of stuff. We'll be having some of the clips pop up there. We'll have some stuff from here pop over there. Graphai is going to be a lot of our theology and Bible study stuff. Our podcast should hopefully be starting back up Monday. Hopefully, Caleb, I need to find time to get the episode done. Let me think what else. There's Ecclesia, which will also hopefully start back up sometime next week. That's more church history, how things are functioning with how things should function with the church, things that are happening the church can respond to, or work through podcast. I am also, for anyone who is curious, because if you have a friend who prefers the Facebook route, I'm going to say here anyways, you know, on YouTube right now, that Facebook will also start getting most of our YouTube content. They get our podcast anyways, and we'll probably start uploading some other stuff over there for anyone who's wanting to hop on that, and hopefully that can open up another venue that we can stream to once we hit to the required numbers that we need for that page. And Instagram and TikTok will start getting some more updates now that we are getting some more stuff recorded. I have some project ideas I'm excited about. I just need to work on them in the next few weeks before school year starts. You look mad. Is it because of the...
I'm so tilted.
You're so tilted.
I'm so tilted.
You're fine. So I lost my train of thought now. So anyways, we this summer, Lord willing, we will be getting to update a lot of this stuff, and if you're curious, you can follow us on here. Again, regulars, all of our main stuff. Graphai is our more theology-centered stuff. That's probably going to be mostly me. Ecclesia is a mix of the two of us, and we have a friend who's considering joining us. He's just not sure yet. He has some stuff he's to figure out. And then Apologia is going to be a lot of Caleb stuff. And then here's just our streams and other stuff. But let us know in the comments if things you want us to kind of cover on any of those channels. Join our Discord if you want a more direct. I have under our submissions thread some sub threads.
I will
Sorry,
say
under our
Discord,
council.
Yeah. I will say the Discord is a much better way to reach us because we don't always read YouTube comments. But we are pretty active in the Discord consistently. So if you do want us to,
Yeah, but I gotta say comment because engagement helps.
no, I get you. Absolutely, still comment, right? Like, there's no reason you can't do both. Porque no los dos, right? Like, we can do both, but just know that we're more likely to respond to you on Discord.
Yeah, but we will be. I set up under the council of submissions under our ecumenical council there that there's some threads you can do that are for each specific channel. So you just got to click on it and then click on threads and you'll see the 4 thread options if you want to specify there. There's lots of kind of things you want us to do. It could be like reacting to things, could be responding to things, could be like, hey, can you tell us more about X, be like this theological concept or whatever. That's what we do for our class group as well. They tell us things they want us to look into. That's why we have our 3 views of hell video, of which I'm finding more things. I'm like, dang it, I wish I found this sooner because this would have been really cool to involve to help distinguish some things more. But oh, well, it's too late. But yeah, with all that said, like, subscribe, comment, hit the bell so you know when we're doing all of our things. I think starting next week, we should hopefully be posting most days of the week again. If I can get everything done this weekend, because I'm still catching up on all my editing. And follow the other channels, join our Discord, which is in the link below or in the bio. Let us know what kind of things you want to do. We would love for some creative new ways or things to do differently on our stream or channel that kind of helps you guys enjoy us in a different way than the other channels. We're not just repeating what they're doing. But with all that said, we'll really see you in the next stream. Caleb's going to remain tilted for the rest of the night. And we'll, yeah, I guess with all that said, we will see you next time.
Because I could have done the bit better. I could have done.
Ramadan more like Ramadan. Muhammad, man, is such a clown. Oh wow, what a crowd. No child for a month, but tell me now, tell me how. Is it fasting if you change your meals to nighttime? Tell me how do you think this vow somehow really makes you holier than thou? Nah, man, stuff in your face for an entire night is only gonna kill you quicker now. Bringing about a lower health condition, but that's Muhammad for you now. He don't care about you only for his clout. Allah, so dumb to choose a prophet, he had to choke out. But then again, what else would a demon do to get his own religion now? Turn from this insanity, please. I am begging thee. Turn away from these awful things. Come to the light where there's a God who actually cares for thee. Actually wanted the best of things for you and me. I mean, consider that this prophet is a warlord. This ain't news, you had to have heard that before. Taking a 6-year-old bride and consummated when she was 9. I don't wanna hide this from you, I just want you to know the truth. Hope you come to see that this prophet ain't for you. Ooh, Islamic dilemma. His teachings will lead you right together, but that's what he wants to be less reliable than a radio render antenna. Murder so many, enslave so many, it's not even funny how he tells you to kill all those infidels, they be committing a felony. I am begging thee, turn away from these awful things. Come to the light where there's a God who actually cares for thee. Actually wanted the best things for you and me. Yeah, and his son do die on that cross. What a boss move, it was at such a cost. Yeah, his plan is to heal the spirit and buy, but you would rather kill it off, whether you realize it or not. Let the spirit break you free from a law, the demon who got you caught in this false religion. He ain't a boss, he just wants you enslaved. Look, man, at all the destruction Islam has brought, yeah. Yeah, Jesus Christ came down to die for you. Set you free from doing such a beautiful move. It makes me wanna move and share the gospel with you. Please listen to the truth. Repent and believe in the gospel is all you gotta do. I'm not a lie, I would never lie to you. I am begging thee, turn away from these awful things. Come to the light where there's a God who actually cares for thee.